Welcome everybody to Lightning Talks at day 2. The first talk has been cancelled apparently because Mattis is not here. If we will appear later, we'll have his talk afterwards. Anyway, we'll start now with Florian Burkhardt talking about open source and pandemic influenza. We only have 6 talks today, so I'll give him about 6 or 7 minutes. I'll tell you 1 minute before the end that you should hurry a bit. So go on.
Excellent. Hello. Well, my name is Florian Burkhardt, and I would like to talk the next 5 minutes about the common success strategies of open source software and, well, you see, pandemic influenza. And it does seem like a far stretch, and it is a far stretch, but it's a great way to catch attention. And it also illustrates common principle in both worlds, meat space and cyberspace, because in both worlds we encounter similar problems, and when we have similar problems, we usually have similar solutions. And in cyberspace, you have the challenge to write code, write good code, and to make it more efficient, and also to optimize your code. And one solution has been that you start sharing your code with the open source community. And by doing that, you basically say, or you share your code and you give away your, well, intellectual property, and you ask others to improve on that, so that the end result is more than its part, and it's better suited to solve your problems. And in the biological world, you have a similar problem. Every organism has its genetic code, and you are constantly under, you find yourself, or the organisms find themselves under constant changing environmental conditions. And now, not looking at the individual organism, but looking at the whole species over time, you need to ensure that your offspring, or your, I don't know, 100th generation offspring, has the same survival chances. And evolution came up with a quite good tool for doing this, and it's sexual reproduction, where you basically change large chunks of your genome, you exchange it with each other, and this should be seen opposed to the normal genetic mutation that occurs, because here you really exchange large parts and large chunks of your genome. And even bacteria have sexual reproduction. Viruses do not have it per se, but they have different mechanisms invented to make sure that they don't only rely on the genetic drift. Genetic drift would be the very slow accumulation of mutations. But they also have methods which allow them to exchange whole parts of their genome at once. And I randomly picked a virus, which just happened to be the influenza A virus, which was also in the press as the avian influenza, or the Vogelgrippe. And influenza is quite a big challenge to public health, because it has the very nasty property that you are infectious before you note that you are infected. So before you become sick, you have the opportunity to infect, well, basically everybody you meet. And all the normal methods for containing an epidemic, like quarantine or isolation, what they did, for example, with SARS, they just don't work because you do not know, or sick people are not recognized. Then, like all viruses, excuse me, it has a very high mutation rate. This essentially means that you do not care how many junk offspring you produce, as long as there is one offspring which has changed its genes so much that it is more successful in invading, for example, our next organism. We could not afford this high mutation rate. We would simply die of cancer. And something that is really nasty with influenza is that it has a segmented genome. And I will come to this point, to this segmentation later. The next real problem is that it has a very broad host range. Usually, if you get infected by something, you are or only your species can get infected by this, because there's a very high specialization of the pathogens and the hosts. But here you can have different hosts. You can have a bird, like the little duck. You could have the little piggy. And of course, you can also have humans. Now, what happens is that in each of those species you have a very normal genetic drift. You have mutations coming up and just accumulating, but they all stay in the same organism. They all stay in the duck, they all stay in the little piggy or in the human. However, when you have a situation where all three come together, and this is the case with a lot of farmers in rural China, and it probably was the case in Europe 100 years ago, then you have, and they actually live very close together, and they are in very close contact. Then you have the situation that your formally separated viruses can exchange their information. This, of course, refers only to the influenza A virus, so you can't have random viruses exchanging information with random viruses.
Florian, it's last minute.
Okay. So the idea is that code sharing of whole genome segments leads to this newly arranged, really, really dangerous virus. And right now we are at the situation of 2005. This is up here. We have avian influenza, and what everybody is afraid of is that something like this rearrangement could happen. And the prediction is that it will happen anywhere in the next 10 or 20 years, or within the next, well, 10 or 15 years. So I skip this. You can download it from the wiki. It just says the same. So the summary is that code sharing is quite a very old, tested and very proven strategy in evolution to optimize your biological or digital program code. And well, yeah, this was it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and the next talk is done by Jens Ohlig about Jabber on mobile devices.
Yeah, thank you. I have not prepared any slides because I think would be overkill for 5 minutes. I just want to give you an idea. You all have, I guess, mobile devices like cell phones, and they get smarter and smarter every day. And nowadays we also have a new phenomenon, instant messaging. Probably most of you have ICQ accounts or use AOL Instant Messenger or whatever. But of course there's a better solution for that for geeks, which is the Jabber protocol, which is an open protocol. It's an RFC internet standard, and basically you use XML things to exchange messages. You can do a lot more than just chatting and see who's online. And yeah, basically instant messaging has evolved to be something like the missing link between email communication and a telephone call. A telephone call has the disadvantages that you play this tag game with people, like you give them a call and then they are not there, and you try it again and they are not there, and then they try to call you but you are out for lunch. So there's a problem to see when they're online, so to say. Email is another problem. You send off an email, and depending on the person and their discipline to check their email boxes, it can take maybe days for them to respond. So instant messaging really fills this gap that you can have instant communication and also can exchange electronic data like with email. And more people use this for businesses, and Jabber, of course, because it's not proprietary, because it's not owned by one company and anyone can set up a Jabber server, is the ideal thing for that. Now, wouldn't it be great to have that on your mobile phone? There are already ideas how to do that, and there is also source code available on the internet for mobile phone Jabber clients, but I think up to now we have not seen the ideal solution, and we have not seen an integration of that Jabber client into a web interface, for instance. There's a great web interface called JW Chat, which is done by some guy from Berlin, and basically brings Jabber to your desktop, to your browser. And now what we need is bringing Jabber to your mobile phone and stop using this annoying SMS thing. We've been working on that. Commercially, we've reviewed quite a few Jabber servers and quite a few you know, parts, open source parts, how to put them together and how to have a really round product. It's not ready yet, but we've already registered the domain name, of course, because that's the first thing that you do. We call this Mabber, mabber.com, mabber.com. And if you look at it now, you can, well, enter your email address and you will get notified when we will start, which will be in the very soon future. I don't want to make promises, but it's going to be awesome. And if you want to have a look at it, well, we can have a talk afterwards. CCC people would be, of course, yeah, very welcome as beta testers. It will be commercial after some time, but it will be built out of open source blocks, building blocks. For instance, we reviewed a lot of Jabber servers to get the job done. We wrote a lot of code for a nice web front end, and of course there's a very classy Java-based mobile phone client that you can use. And I hope that for the first time we have put together the right building blocks, and I just wanted to point you to that internet address, mabber.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Jens. I just subscribed to your newsletter. I hope you won't spam it. Well, anyway, the next talk is done by Philipp Drössler about post-structured journalism. Is Philipp here in the room?
Actually, yes.
Oh, cool. Okay, so just go on and have fun.
If you look at the wiki of this conference, there's a list of blogs that report about this conference. It is about 3 pages long. Since about 6 years, weblogs have turned from something that people don't do to something people just do. And we now have podcasts and video blogs in addition to that, and many people use blogs as a digital diary or a way to rant about their lives. But there are people who want to do more than that, who want to do actual journalistic content with digital media. There are groups like the Gothamists and Metroblogs, which have planet-spanning networks that do such things, but they encounter 2 problems. The one thing is, if you remember the terrorist attacks in London or the earthquakes in Pakistan or the ever natural disaster in the last year, the old media, newspapers, television, radio, actually turned to bloggers for information, because bloggers have the benefit of not being confined in a deep structure, not having to ask for money, guidance, allowance by their supervisors, by whoever they work for. So they can get there fast. They can get the information when it happens, not when they get allowed to get it. But since most bloggers aren't structured, they just have their domain and their little blog system, we don't get the credit. It's just, oh, nice, it's the bloggers. Look, they wrote something, we can use it. Hey, hi, bloggers. That's not very good. And the other thing is, a journalist has many problems. If they work for a conservative newspaper, they can't write, and they find out that the conservative presidential candidate has sexual tendencies towards goats, they can't write about it, because it would be against the line of the media they work for. A blogger can do this, and they will do it if they are at least a bit honest. But there's a magic word, and the thing that distributes a blogger from an actual journalist is accreditation. If you're accredited with a newspaper or a TV station or a radio station, you get a nice little piece of plastic saying press journalist, and you can go around and wave it around, and people just talk to you. They give you answers, they give you information, resources. You can go to press conferences. Bloggers can't do this because what do you want? It doesn't work right now. And where I come from in Austria, since about 6 months, there's been a law in effect that forces bloggers to note their name, their address, and contact information on their weblog, to give up their privacy, because the Constitutional Court ruled that weblogs equal journalistic content. But another law states that unless you get paid for being a journalist, which most bloggers don't, because who would pay themselves, they can't get accredited as a press reference. So we get all the blame and all the responsibility, but none of the good stuff. And